Good morning, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to episode number 86. Today's going to be a wild one. We're going to talk about the loyal obedience of death itself. We're in the story of Lazarus. Let me read. Jesus, this is from John chapter 11. I'm going to start in verse 38. This is after Jesus wept. He was moved in his spirit. He was deeply troubled. Then Jesus, verse 38, then Jesus, deeply moved again, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone lay against it. Jesus said, "Take away the stone." Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to him, "Lord, by this time there will be an odor, for he has been dead for 4 days." Jesus said to her, "Did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God?" So they took away the stone. And Jesus lifted up his eyes and said, "Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I knew you always hear me, but I said this on account of the people standing around, that they may believe that you sent me." When he had said these things, he cried out with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out." Let me pause right here. Here we have Jesus speaking to his creation, and he's the one that's in charge of the breath of life. He says, "Lazarus, come out." And so let's not read ahead for just a second. What happens next? What happens to death? Will death obey the Creator? Will the up to this minute rebellion and wrath that death has done every minute of its existence, will it ultimately obey the direct command of the Creator? And here it is, verse 44. The man who had died, Lazarus, came out, his hands and feet bound with linen strips and his face wrapped with a cloth. Jesus said to them, "Unbind him and let him go." So here's the most curious thing that this blew my mind in thinking about it today, is the loyal obedience of death. So that when Jesus says, let go of him, stop being dead, there's no argument from death. You don't see any rebellion here. You don't see any fight between, good and evil. The command is spoken. Lazarus, come out, come back to life. And the command is immediately obeyed. So the irony here is that death loyally obeys. What struck me is the loyal obedience of death in this story. So death is loyal to the commands of God. Wow. Death doesn't rebel and say, "I will not give this one up." When God speaks authoritatively, death answers faithfully. Let me say that again. When God speaks authoritatively, death answers faithfully. So the challenge for us is when we hear of death's faithful answer to the command of the Creator, the question for us is, do we faithfully respond? So what is the command to death? Let him go. And death does so. What's the command to people in the story? Well, it's to believe. It says to believe a couple times in our passage today, and the big one is 2 paragraphs above this in 11:26, where Jesus says, "I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, though he die, yet shall he lives. And everyone who lives and believes in me shall never die." Do you believe this? So when asked to obey, death says basically, yes, I will obey. And the question for us is, when we get the call, will you obey the call that Jesus says? Well, frequently you say, "Hey, well, let me think about it," or "No," or "Maybe tomorrow," or "I need more information," or "Hey, I love my sin at this hour." Here's my snarky charge to all of us, is let's try to be a better example than death itself in the story. So death loyally obeys. And at the end of the stories, we can kind of assess obedience. When we look at death, its response to the command, we can kind of say, "Hey, you did a good job." And when we look at the hearers and the seers and the people in the story, can we say, "You did a good job"? The irony is that death obeys and people may or may not obey. So So the Lord has got this. He's got this power. He's got he ends up in the position where death is ultimately not in rebellion. And our question is, can people stand in rebellion, in unbelief? The answer is yes. The Lord allows rebellion to him, at least for a while. So the rebellion in our story is ultimately not with death, it's with people. So when does God allow rebellion? Well, he allows it today, as perhaps you'll hear that still small voice in your conscience or shouts from your soul, maybe saying, hey, don't look at that, or don't think that, or don't say that, or do say that. In all those, he allows a choice, agency. And don't let this be you. Don't count yourself amongst them disobeying the Lord. So he allows disobedience in the end, or near the end. Read Revelation. People rebel even to the second to the last page when they're eternally separated from him, and then every knee is going to bow and every tongue is going to confess. So death will not ultimately rebel from the commands of God. The question is, will you? So what should I do? What should I believe? How can I obey? I think three things. I think God is asking us, believe the story that you raised Lazarus. Number two, believe that you raised yourself, Jesus, at the resurrection. And number three, I believe that you can raise me after my death. So death is ultimately going to faithfully obey the Lord. And when God speaks authoritatively to death, death answers faithfully. Death is loyal to the commands of God. So I want us to do at least as good a job as death itself. So let's use the loyal obedience of death itself as an inspiration for us to obey. So let's get inspired specifically in what we believe about death, and particularly in what we believe that the Lord has power over death. Thanks for listening.